Yo, Joe, welcome back to 80s Comics for the review of G.I. Joe issue number 29 from November of 1984, a real sleeper issue. This one looks like it's going to be a good G.I. Joe, but it's actually a great G.I. Joe. We know that G.I. Joe fights for freedom over land and air. They also fight for freedom over asphalt and water using the Whale, which is the G.I. Joe hovercraft. This is basically one enormous commercial to run out and buy the G.I. Joe hovercraft, but it's really good. There it is, right there. The Whale, Beached Whale, which gets banged up in the previous issue. Here's the talented folks who made this one. Larry Hama, Frank Springer. Doesn't get much better than that. Oh, and if you liked Roadblock before this one, you're going to love Roadblock because he's awesome. Look, these jerk kids are messing with Roadblock, and he takes all of them and duct tapes them to that thing and drowns them. They cut that panel out, though. Maybe I dreamed that. Anyway, Cobra Commander and Wild Weasel return to Springfield while the G.I. Joe hovercraft is getting repaired, and then Destro and Fire Fly using the fan boat. And anytime I see a fan boat, I just think of Invasion USA with Chuck Norris. You know what I'm talking about. How awesome is Invasion USA with Chuck Norris? They invade the USA with like 35 guys, but then Chuck Norris fights them off with an Uzi and a fan boat. It's been a while since I've seen that. At least that's how I remember it. Anyway, here's Cobra Commander in front of his adoring crowd doing his best Hitler impersonation. Oh, and look, they've even got red hats. How appropriate. Let's read the dialogue. Our household cleaning product pyramid scheme grows exponentially. Our nationwide greed is good for you seminars are filled to capacity. Armies of Cobra accountants advise millions of Americans to cheat on their taxes. You can't make this stuff up. It's so silly. It couldn't possibly be real. Here's the Crimson Guard, a Cobra accountant who's infiltrating the American dream with his happy American family. His briefcase. The only way that you can stop him is by purchasing a bunch of G.I. Joe vehicles at Toys R Us. The beginning is good. I'm immediately intrigued, but then it just gets better as Destro and Firefly jack the Whale. I love how Cutter tries to punch out Destro, only to find out that his face is made of steel. And it doesn't work. Firefly unloads on Roadblock, who holds up a giant piece of armor plating and deflects all of his shots. Cutter gets thrown off the Whale. This is great. Good stuff here. Great action. Incredible drawing from Frank Springer. Good writing from Larry Hama. The Joes, who never give up and only occasionally surrender, chase down the Whale with Wild Bill and helicopter. And this thing, which transforms into a hydrofoil, but it's not the Cobra hydrofoil. This is the G.I. Joe hydrofoil. As far as I know, they did not make a toy out of a toy or playset out of that thing. But I love how this thing just Cutter drives this thing like a maniac. Hydrofoils are not supposed to go over land, but he drives over the land anyway and rips off the hydrofoil thingies, whatever those are called. Learn to speak. And they eventually catch up to the Whale. Destro shoots at it with his wrist rockets. While Bill and Duke almost get shot down, you can buy beautiful wedding rings by clipping out that coupon and mailing it in 30-some years ago. And then Firefly and Destro actually managed to outsmart the Joes, but thankfully Roadblock is a badass and saves the day. And I'm going to show you a shot of that because it's just awesome. I think Roadblock and Rock and Roll should have had their own spin-off comic book series. Two dudes with big machine guns who rock. That's what they should have called it. Anyway, he saves the day. Tripwire tries to save the day, but Roadblock's like, dude, you're an idiot. You don't need to kill yourself. Just throw the grenade out the frickin' pipe. It's G.I. Joe 29, and it's awesome because it's G.I. Joe. This is like the best era of G.I. Joe. So if you want to get into this series, if you're watching 80s comics and you're like, I've never read any of these, but they look cool, they are. And you can pick up some back issues for cheap. Search online, check your local comic shop, call your comic shop and see if they have some. Also, admire the cover inconsistency. Notice that Destro is shooting at Roadblock and Duke, but in the book, it's actually Firefly. They're going to have to go back and remake this one. Sorry. It's still recommended. Never mind. I don't care. It's a nice cover, though. Also, the more that I look at this ad, the more I think that she's just holding his head up because he's dead.